how do you turn a classic album into an album that's even more classic? In my humble opinion, stick around. Hi, I'm Michael Douglas. Welcome to another episode of Doctor Pundit, where we talk about music, not medicine, and where we are also the channel that doesn't do YouTube shorts, instead opting to do full-length videos that stand alone on substance and information. At least I hope they do. So welcome. And on this edition of the channel, I'll be talking about fantasy albums. This is the first installment of this theme on this channel, where I take an album and discuss its most essential tracks, thereby kind of paring that album down, devoid of a lot of fluff, as fantasy album. This is what I think the album should be represented by. And of course, you could also talk about an artist's body of work and do kind of not a greatest hits album, but an album that encompasses some of their best work, if only they release that as a single album. But on this show, I'm paring down what's already a great album into what I think would be even a greater album if it just had these 5 tracks. And that album is a 1983 smash by Duran, Rio. A fantastic album on its own right. But these 5 songs, presented in no particular order, I think would make that album even much better on their own. So let's get into it. Now, with respect to Rio, don't go thinking that this success of this album was all about the music videos. Now, Duran certainly mastered the art of MTV mini-movies to help their ascent into music superstardom in the 1980s, but without the thrilling raw material provided by their 1983 album, Rio, those clips would have certainly rung hollow on some respect. Now, looking back at that album, more than 40 years have passed, of course, it's clear that these guys, Duran, who were still a bit green in the gills, none of the band members were over 24 when this album was released, delivered nothing short of a masterpiece. Hindsight is 20/20, but in this case, it is oh so good. Now, here's my opinion of the 5 best tracks from this album, an album that you could re-release today as Rio with these 5 tracks and nothing else. First, New Religion. Duran's first album turned them into British pop stars, and they quickly developed some songs on the heels of that, which would eventually make it on to Rio. New Religion was the best of this first batch of tracks, a perfect example of the band's ability to dredge rafter-raising choruses out of a moody main structure, which in this case is driven by the repetitive drum-bass pattern of John Taylor and Roger Taylor. Simon Le Bon shows off, obviously, his ability to transform a relatable angst into a scenario full of danger and drama, which somehow makes it all the more exciting in the process. The next track, Save a Prayer. Now, the big hits were naturally the up-tempo songs on Rio, but where this album really showed off a band that was going places and was in it for the long haul was in this track, Save a Prayer. And, on some of these slower tracks like this song, Duran displayed a preternatural ability to sustain a mood through its entirety without these things starting to drag down the track and make it hard to listen to before the song even ends. Nick Rhodes, the way he kind of uses the keyboard is evident here. And while Andy Taylor's guitar fits right in, giving the song that extra push, his guitar also gives it kind of a blues feel. Lyrically, Simon Le Bon tells a story of a romance on the run that's not built from lust, but from the longing of 2 people alienated from a cruel world. The third of 5 tracks on this perfect Rio album, in my opinion, would be the title cut, Rio. Duran perfected the ability to bring exotic scenarios and locations into pop music, and the title track just might be their magnum opus in this department. LeBone manages to deliver a character sketch of an alluring woman, while also suggesting that you can only get to her by throwing caution to the wind and putting your heart in jeopardy. Of course, John Taylor's bass playing is rubbery, relentless, and indefatigable, and that keeps you, the listener, hustling right along with the narrator, Simon LeBone. And again, the chorus brings it all back to sing-along territory just when you all need it to do so, making it a compelling from first bar to the end of the song. Rio, fantastic track, title cut. The fourth and fifth tracks is The Chauffeur. Now, changing musical tastes caused some of it, but the fact that Duran didn't live so high on the charts for quite as long as some of the other 80s megastars had to do a lot with their propensity for experimentation and willful but fascinating weirdness. The Chauffeur comes out of nowhere on this album, and it rounds out the album, of course, and it gives this part of the album an atmosphere of mystery and a compelling reason to really listen to it. Nick Rhodes' keyboards are eerily chirpy to the point where this song feels like some sort of classic 1970s Bowie and 1990s Radiohead. LeBone's lyrics drip with surreal poetry and give this car ride an air of a dark, alluring wonder. And Chauffeur, the song itself, was used as a B-side to many of the A-sides released here in the US. Finally, what would the top 5 songs on this album be without the biggest hit from this album, Hungry Like the Wolf? Even though we were 3 years into the 1980s when it was released, Hungry Like the Wolf is a song that felt like it helped to jumpstart the 1980s because of its video production and the eclectic nature of the video meeting the song and making it all one huge event. It brought vibrancy and experimentation and excitement back to the table and made the whole thing just fascinating. Right from the opening laughter of the song, it has you. The transitions from the section to section are uniformly invigorating. And it's just the cherry on top of this huge track. Taylor's tough guitar and Nick Rhodes' pulsating synths just add to that and make Hungry Like the Wolf an essential track on an already essential album, made more essential by making it 5 top tracks on this album. Hungry Like the Wolf, Rio, The Chauffeur, New Religion, and Save a Prayer. 5 top tracks that, if I were re-releasing Rio today, would be the only tracks on that album, making it the perfect Duran album. And an album that I definitely would call a fantasy album. I'm Michael Douglas. If you like what you see here on Dr. Pundit, please don't hesitate to like and subscribe. And as the late great Barry White always used to say, until next time, let the music play. And I'll see you on the next episode.